Hi everyone, it's Will. We've fallen a little out of step with Dmitri because we are still on his diary entry of the 28th of April 1921, and today it's the 29th of April 2025, but the fault for that is mine because I divided the diary entry of the 28th into two parts. So yesterday, the first part, Dmitri returned to the topic of his first confession since he'd participated in the Rasputin assassination and his first communion since then. But his focus in this instance was on Maria and a really bad experience that she had in church where people were heckling her because they seemed to think that she had pushed her way to the front of the line and wasn't legitimately there when she went to receive communion. Anyway, moving on, our cast today, well, we have Cole Porter, which always frustrates me because Cole Porter is mentioned many times in the diaries, but Dmitri just never has a single word to say about him other than to just note the fact that he's present on any given occasion. So that's too bad. But really the focus in this diary or in this second part of the same diary entry is on women. So of course we have Maria. We also have Coco, so that the two poles of the women in Dmitri's life, Maria at the one end and Coco at the other, and in between we have Linda Porter, who I've talked about a little bit before. She was the wife of Cole, but long before she'd been the wife of Cole, she was a friend of Dmitri's. I don't get the impression that she was ever a lover of his, but she was an important friend. She was one of the women that he relied on, as he did throughout his life, to sort of keep him emotionally on an even keel and to provide psychological support. And she was one of the women who introduced him to the New Thought philosophy and the books that kind of kept him going in the immediate aftermath of the revolution when he was in Persia. And yeah, she was a close friend. He was a little sad when she married Cole Porter, even though it doesn't seem to have interfered at all with their friendship. So that was good. And the final in this diary section, focusing on the female element, are the Russian ladies. Dmitri refers to them as such, Russian ladies who were at Maria's bazaar that she held in Paris for some reason during Holy Week on Holy Thursday. So they'd all been in church, and now Dmitri switches from a description of that to a description of the bazaar. So here we go. This is post-church. I had coffee at Maria's, then went home. I lunched at Linda Porter's. No one else was there except Cole. Afterwards, I went to 72 Rue de Varenne, the Crisavalloni's house, where Maria had organized the bazaar. I have to give the Russian ladies full credit. They really did themselves proud despite being in a refugee situation. And some of the things were quite beautiful. But of course, Maria's work was the best. She displayed lingerie and blouses of her own making. There weren't very many people that day, so they sold relatively little. Maria's things, thank God, sold better than the others. I had tea with Coco and dinner at Maria's and went to bed very early. Okay, so they didn't go back to church in the evening. So Linda Porter, I already said what I have to say about her. The fact that Cole is never described in any way. I wasn't quite sure what to do with the word that I ended up translating as lingerie, because it could be something else. It could just be translated as underwear, either for a man or a woman. It could be translated as linen. I guess linens in the sense of underwear made of linen, or I don't know. I think if it was bed linens, it would be a different word, but I'm not 100% sure. It could also be translated as, as underwear, as lingerie, as linens, or as laundry. And obviously she didn't make and display laundry. That would make no sense. So it's, I assume, either lingerie or underwear. And she made blouses. And, she was very, very good at this. She was good at the level of being able to do it professionally, as she would both for Coco, doing embroidery on order from Coco, contract work, I guess, I don't know, and as she would also when she started her own business called Kitmir, which I don't know enough about at the moment to talk about, but we have the proud brother here saying that her things were the best and they sold the best. But he's also impressed with what the other Russian ladies are, what they produced. And especially given that, as he says, that they're in a refugee situation. They're refugees. So as you perhaps recall, they were not they were not raising money for a particular charity. They were raising money for themselves. The ladies who were selling things were keeping the money that they got from selling things. So apparently they needed it. I don't think it would have been organized on that basis if it hadn't been clear that they needed the money. They needed a livelihood. So anyway, not surprising that on a Thursday during Holy Week, not many people came, but it was not a one-day event. So we'll find out more about it in the next diary entry, the second day of the bazaar. And the next diary entry will be Good Friday. So we'll also hear more about that. And is there anything else? I guess not. It's a pretty simple one. Nice to have one of those once in a while. So I guess I will just then see you next time. Bye.